Lesson from 2008, Neil. Money moves across borders, and when one part of the world has a cold, the other part sneezes. Now, remember in 1987, I know you were around and watching the markets back then, Neil. #1 movie, Beverly Hills Cop 2. #1 song that year, the Bangles, Walk Like an Egyptian. Also, the last time we saw Japanese markets fall double digits on that infamous Black Monday 37 years ago, and that's when the Nikkei lost almost 15%. Now, last night, that 12% drop pretty much wiped out the year's entire 20% plus rally. So a bear market there over in Japan. And as you mentioned, it might be patient zero because it was precipitated by the fact that Japan's central bank finally raised interest rates for the first time in 17 years last week. And that's because there's finally inflation in the country once again after almost 40 years of deflation. But when you hike interest rates, the currency, the Japanese yen, also strengthens, and that means billions, if not almost trillions of investor dollars. It needs to be unwound in this so-called carry trade, and that's where investors have been borrowing at zero rates for that cheap yen in Japan and then taking that money elsewhere to get returns, like right here in the U.S., where you have 5% rates at the bank and at the Federal Reserve. Now, U.S. markets followed that steep sell-off. You also had London down over 2%, closing numbers there. Record declines for Taiwan and South Korea. Circuit breakers were kicked in to halt the selling. Circuit breakers also triggered in Japan last night with some scary double-digit losses. But it's not only economic growth scares that's really fueling this selling. You also have threats of geopolitics, as you know, reports that Iran might strike Israel as early as today. Oil prices up slightly on that news, and that fear gauge, you saw it earlier this morning, highest since 2020. It went above 60, and we've backed off those levels this hour, Neil, but some are calling that we need some aggressive, sharp, early action from the central bank and the Federal Reserve right now.
I think the news you broke here was that Walk Like an Egyptian was the #1 song at the time of the 87 crash, because
That's
today
right.
everyone was selling like an Egyptian. That market was down 2 1/3 points.
Margin calls as well.
Best I could do. Best I could do. Great job, Susan. Susan Lee on that.